stocks notched some gains after US President Donald Trump suggests that he may go easier on tariffs to be announced today than earlier expected. Realty and consumer durable stocks gain while utilities and energy drag. Yields fall sharply after RBI announced the massive OMO bond purchase last evening. Even as US President Donald Trump is expected to announce the imposition of reciprocal tariffs today, trade experts say that India may be able to offer some concessions without hurting Indian industries to blunt the impact. Even as reciprocal tariffs loom, India's crude oil import from the United States jumped 67% in March 2025, suggesting that President Donald Trump's efforts to boost American oil sales are having an impact. Oil Minister Hardeep Singh Puri had earlier hinted that India will increase its energy cooperation with the United States. Indian government faces a liability of more than 1 trillion rupees for outstanding sovereign gold bonds at current price. Finance Ministry tells Parliament outstanding bonds have underlying gold of 130 tons. Peak of net interest margins of banks is behind us as savers have matured to become investors. Veteran bankers Dinesh Khara, S. Mundra, Srini Varadarajan tell CNBC-TV18 separately bank stocks gain as bond yields fall sharply after RBI announced massive 80,000 crore bond purchase in April. Hello, good afternoon. You've tuned into CNBC-TV18. You're watching Business Lunch coming live from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal studios. I'm Vinny Motiwala and thank you so much as always for tuning in. A quick look at what the market is doing today, right? Nifty, a good show, good performance continuing for the markets, holding on to gains of almost 0.4% like you can see on your screens. 23,250 levels, managing to hold on to that mark, up almost 100 points is what we're seeing the Nifty 50 trading at. Look at the contributors coming in on the screen, right? We do have those banking names coming in on the positive side. HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, Infosys as well as Bharat Airtel among the top supporters for the Nifty 50. A bit of a drag coming in from L&T, Hindalco as well as NTPC is what I'm seeing on the screen. Now, other than that, when you're looking at the advanced decline, an interesting move that has come in for the advanced decline ratio. Look at it. In the morning, we had seen that there was more declines than advances, and now that has changed. It's crisscross that's come in at around 10:30, 11, and now advances is much higher than we're seeing in terms of decline. And because of that, we're seeing the performance also coming in for the mid and small cap. Broader markets that have seen a sharp recovery from the day's lowest point. Nifty mid-cap up more than 1%. Small cap also outperforming now the benchmark indices. So Nifty small cap is holding on to gains of almost 0.8% in today's trading session. All sectors as of now are trading in the green, and the top sectoral gainer for the day is Nifty Realty. That's holding on to gains of almost 3% in today's trading session, day's highest point. Any name that you see in the real estate side is buzzing in trade. Valor Estate, Godrej Properties, Prestige Estate. All these names are holding on to very strong gains. Other than that, we had updates coming in from retailers. So V-Mart, V2 Retail, Bazaar style retail. These are the ones that are managing to hold on to very strong gains in today's trading session. And lastly, jewelry retailers also performing well. Titan as well as Kalyan. And other than that, we have HEG Graphite that have picked up some bit of a pace. So let's watch out for those two names in the trading session as well. Look at the run-up that's come in for both these stocks suddenly. So that's holding on to gains of 3%. But yes, that's how we are looking at in terms of the market. But the most important thing that we're keeping an eye out on is Trump's Liberation Day. That is the 2nd of April, and that is here. Now, investors are awaiting Trump's latest tariff rollout that will be coming in. Let's get in a quick take from CNBC's Becky Quick, who's joining in with us to give us more details on that one.
We're now just hours away from President Donald Trump's tariff announcement, with America and its trading partners holding their breath. The White House has provided little detail on what to expect, but what we do know is this. Reciprocal tariffs will take force from today, immediately after the announcement. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has labelled this as a cap of the highest duty level, which could go down if countries meet demands. On Tuesday, the Washington Post reported that one draft proposal would see the US impose a levy of 20% across nearly all imports into the United States. A blanket tariff is a potential. Donald Trump will deliver his tariff announcement in the Rose Garden today at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. That is 9 p.m. BST, in an event that some are calling Make America Wealthy Again. Alongside reciprocal tariffs, there are further measures coming into effect from today. The US will place an extra 25% levy on countries that buy oil from Venezuela. It will also lift the pause on additional duties on Mexico and Canada, and the 25% tariff on all autos imported into the United States that Trump announced last week will come into force from today. So even complex on the detail we already have. Now, Europe is planning to retaliate. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has vowed to respond with a strong plan against the US, telling the EU Parliament on Tuesday that the bloc holds a lot of the cards in negotiations. Meanwhile, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has reportedly told cabinet members they should brace for tariffs to hit the UK from today, but that he remains hopeful of striking a deal down the line. Starmer has already signalled he's willing to pare back the UK's digital services tax on American technology companies.
And tariffs continue to be the main focus across the globe. Let's listen into the Chief Economic Advisor of Alliance, Mohammed Al Arian's comments on what could be the effect of this rollout.
There is a case for a fairer trading system. There is a case for a fairer distribution of defense spending. And people see that. The question is, do you get there in one round or do you get there in multiple rounds? And that's really important because ultimately, I think we're looking at a 50-50 outcome, and I hate saying this. This could be a major rewiring of the domestic economy and of the global economy, a la Thatcher, a la Reagan, where you get a more enabled private sector, streamlined government, a fairer trading system. Or alternatively, if we get tit-for-tat tariffs, we slip into stagflation, and that stagflation becomes well anchored, and that becomes problematic.
And Goldman Sachs reduces its economic and earnings outlook for the year on the back of a tariff impact. Here's the chief U.S. equity strategist, David Costins, who's commenting on the same as well. Listen in.
Right now, we're looking for around 3% earnings growth this year. The consensus expectations for all the analysts, other strategists on Wall Street are 9%. So that's a pretty meaningful gap. Expectation is you're going to get a pretty difficult first quarter. Companies will be less, inclined to give guidance, given a lot of uncertainty around how do you price products in an environment where the tariff situation is unknown. Even if we do get some announcements tomorrow, which of course we will. The question is, what will the negotiation process be from that starting point? And so we've been focused a lot with clients on companies whose share prices are less sensitive to the three big issues that investors are focused on, which is the tariff risk, the recession risk, and AI risk.
We also spoke to Marco Papik, the chief strategist at BCA Research, and he said that this may be the peak of deglobalization after the tariffs get imposed. Listen in.
So Liberation Day, April 2nd, of course, is coming. And I think that the reason that Scott Bessent comments were important, and I'm so glad that you introduced them, not many people in the markets are actually picking up on that, but that's a very crucial point. This idea that this is the highest level we're going to get. In other words, we could have April 2nd come in pretty hot with a very, very high level of tariffs, a pretty shocking moment, lots of selling, lots of VIX going up, but it may be the peak in deglobalization hysteria. And so that's how I would reference this. I think that that's the most important point, that this will be the worst, the moment when every new news item after this, in sort of rate of change terms, becomes better and better.
Okay, and to understand more about the impact of the tariffs on India, Abhimanyu is joining in with us now with what sources are telling him. Abhimanyu, take it away.
Well, all countries, including India, are watching with bated breath on what is going to be the impact of tariffs and reciprocal tariffs being applied by the United States. What sources have indicated till now that the US has received a far-reaching offer from India to bring down average tariffs, and the discussions were held around removal of QCOs and agricultural tariffs as well last week, and three possible scenarios have been discussed about the reciprocal tariff amendments. The first is that the India-US agreement is already reached in the first scenario, and of course India gets immune to the impact of tariffs. The second scenario, of course, seeks the fact that India is going to mitigate the impact of reciprocal tariffs, and the third scenario is that India gets hit with reciprocal tariffs without any exceptions, like any other country is being impacted by that. Also, additionally, the Commerce Ministry is working on different scenarios to assess the possible fallout of the US tariffs. It's preparing different solutions to help Indian industry deal with the impact of reciprocal tariffs. Now, the impact of tariffs may vary from sector to sector, and it's still not clear whether they are going to be impacted, whether they are going to be levied sector-wise, product-wise, or country-wise. So clearly, all options remain open on the table for the government, for the industry. The industry had earlier approached the government and had sought an early conclusion of the bilateral trade agreement, or at least the first tranche of it, which is being negotiated with the United States. It remains to be seen what is going to be the impact of reciprocal tariffs as and when they are going to be applied, and what exactly is going to be the strategy being devised by the government.
Okay, Abhimanyu, thank you so much for that. All eyes are going to be on the US Trump tariffs that he will be announcing tonight. So keep an eye on that. But do remember, you can catch our special coverage on how Trump tariffs will impact India. A special discussion will be coming up for you all tonight at 7:30 p.m. only on CNBC-TV18. Okay, and India has seen a sharp increase in crude oil imports from the United States. India's crude oil imports from United States rose by 67% on a month to around 244,000 barrels per day in the month of March is what we're looking at. And this is coming in amid President Donald Trump's efforts to boost American energy exports. In February, India had imported around 146,000 barrels per day from the United States. So that is something interesting that we're seeing coming in here. Now, in fact, earlier on this year, in February, we had spoken to the Oil Minister Hardeep Singh Puri, who had also indicated that India will increase its energy cooperation with the US. Listen in to an excerpt of that conversation.
Energy cooperation, President Trump saying that India should buy more LNG, more energy from the US. He's even put out a number there saying that that should increase from $15 billion to $25 billion. I wanted to get your comments on that. We have spoken about this previously as well. Do you believe it makes sense? It is something that we should actively pursue and build on.
Energy cooperation between the United States and India was widely expected to figure in the bilateral talks. If you read the joint statement, if you read what the President said, what the Prime Minister said, that's evidence. And I think there is already fairly substantial energy cooperation. The fact of the matter is India needs more energy. We have long-term deals on gas with one country which was there till 2028. You've signed another 20 years there. We are in the market for more gas. We have a stated policy of taking it from 6% to 15% in the energy mix. And I think we have a very substantive relationship with the United States, mostly on gas. I see definitely those quantities being addressed for increase.
Okay, on that note, we'll slip into a break. But as global markets remain on the edge ahead of US President Donald Trump's Liberation Day, tune in to CNBC-TV18 tonight at 1:30 a.m. onwards to get the latest updates and analysis as Trump tariffs come into effect. Welcome back to Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18. Now let's move on. And Indian bond yields have fallen by nearly 10 basis points. And this is coming in after RBI has announced late last evening that it will be buying 80,000 crore of bonds in the month of April alone. Lata is joining in with us to give us more details on this front. Lata, good afternoon.
Yes, a 10 basis point fall is rather unusual. So the benchmark 10-year now, the new 10-year has fallen from 6.58 to about 6.49. So basically 9 basis points at least of fall. And that is, as you said, because of this quite unexpected 80,000 crore bond calendar. Very rarely does the Reserve Bank say that I'm going to do one every week. And it's, 4 bond auctions of 20,000 crore each. It indicates a determination on the part of the RBI to keep liquidity plentiful. Actually, we ended the financial year FY25 as well with a decent surplus in the interbank borrowing market. What you call core liquidity was positive surplus by about 1.5 lakh crore. And the Reserve Bank coming proactively and saying we will be doing every week indicates that they probably want to keep the liquidity at a 2 lakh crore surplus. The market is reading this as extremely dovish because that means they will be dovish in the monetary policy coming up on Wednesday next, April 9th. A rate cut was always factored in by the market, but now the market's reading more. Will they also go in for a stance change? The stance currently is neutral. Will they go in for something like, a more accommodative stance? Will the language change? And therefore, you are seeing a fairly outsized reaction in the bond market. But now the 25 basis point rate cut expected on April 9th is completely priced in. And then, of course, there are other small positives as well. The US bond yields have also fallen, and there is rising talk, including from Goldman Sachs, about a possible recession. So all that is also abetting the rally in the Indian bond market.
Okay, Lata, thank you so much for that. But moving on, and the Indian government is facing a liability of more than 1 trillion rupees for outstanding sovereign gold bonds at the current price. In a reply to Parliament, the government revealed that the outstanding sovereign gold bonds have underlying gold of 130 tons. Manisha Gupta is here to give us more details on this one. Manisha?
We did hear a similar kind of a statement in the last month as well in the Parliament itself. And when you look at the gold prices in last 1 month, we've seen prices gain up by 10%. If you look at the previous quarter, the gold prices have gained up by 18%. And we've started this financial year on a record high as well. So when you look at the calculations that we have been doing in the office today, RBI did issue 67 tranches. And the first tranche was put out in 2015-16. And the total tranches that were put out, that comes to 146.9 tons. Now, 6 of these tranches have been paid off, have been redeemed, but 61 tranches still remain and 130 tons of redemption still remain as well. So when you look at the gold prices right now, the outstanding, if we calculate that to today's price, today's price really comes in at around 9,284 per gram. Now, when you multiply that to 130 tons, the outstanding that the government has to pay to the Indian investors is to the tune of 1.2 trillion rupees. And we are only taking the prices of today because as and when these tranches will continue to come in, you will have to pay them as per the gold price that day. And with the way the gold prices have been moving higher, this number perhaps can go higher as well. Now, just to give you a sense that the last tranche that the government put out was in Feb 2024. So the last of the redemptions will come in 2032. So we still have those years left by, and the gold prices, the way they have been moving, you could be looking at higher prices as well. Another thing is that the government also is paying 2.5% to the investors as per their investment, and this is paid bi-yearly to them. So this is an added calculation as well. The finance minister in the parliament did say that they are maintaining a gold reserve fund where everything is accredited in time, but clearly this 1.2 trillion rupees that stands outstanding as of today is only going to grow going forward.
Absolutely, Manisha. Thank you so much for that update there. But moving on, Shireen Bhan sat down with PVR Inox's MD, Ajay Bijli, to look back at incredible journey from a single screen theatre to India's largest multiplex chain. He spoke about how they plan to increase occupancy levels. Listen in to this exclusive conversation.
And I feel that this 25-26 onwards, these occupancy levels that we're talking about are bound to improve because the supply side
But hope
is looking...
can't be a strategy, right?
Hope is not a strategy.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is a couple of things. I'm saying, okay, if we reach the 31% level, excellent. If we don't, let's align all our costs and our strategies to 25-26%.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So therefore, one is that FOCO model. Where
Yes.
I've already spent 5,200 crores on this circuit by inorganic and organic.
Yeah.
So we are only doing what hotels have done all their lives.
Yes.
Okay. Get basically monetize the brand.
Yeah.
And have
So somebody
a lot
else
of people.
sets up the infrastructure, you run it for them.
Correct.
To put it simply.
Absolutely. We've had to spend more money on our SOPs, brand, and what we bring to the table. So that's one thing that we've done to make sure our ROCE improves.
Yeah.
If we can do more and more screens, around 100 screens got signed last year. This year also about 100 odd screens.
So who are these developers who are coming on board for the 100 screens that you've already got in play and the additional that you are looking at?
Mix of people who are organized and unorganized. One are just one off, two off, in Jaipur, Udaipurs of the world, Nandeds, Ujjains, Indore, Kota, these kind of Ajmer, these kind of places, and then big ones who definitely need a cinema, and then they are also, so a mixed bag.
On that note, we're going to slip into a very short break, and after the break, we'll get you more news and updates, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Business Lunch and CNBC-TV18. Thanks for staying tuned into CNBC-TV18. Now let's move on and shift the focus. And in some important national news updates, the reworked Waqf Bill 2024 has been introduced in the Lok Sabha today amid staunch opposition from the India bloc and prominent Muslim groups. Now CNN News 18's Arunima is joining in with us to give us more details on this one. Arunima, afternoon, and what are you picking up on this front?
So Kiran Rijiju, the Minority Affairs Minister, has already made his opening remarks. He's taken a point-by-point clarification. First and foremost, he said that there was one criticism as to why you are allowing non-Muslims into the Waqf board. So he said Waqf has nothing to do with religious practices. This is purely a matter of property ownership, and therefore it can't be ruled on grounds of religion. Second criticism that the opposition threw at the government is what Kiran Rijiju countered. He said this is in no way a retrospective law. It's not as if all the Waqf properties, all the masjids, all the graveyards, which have been Waqf properties since 1947 and registered, so there are proper documents. It's not as if this law is going to turn those registrations around. This is a law which will have prospective effect. The third objection was that why are you making the collector the designated authority to decide which land is government land? To that, Rijiju said that we have accepted the JPC's recommendation, and now any official over and above the collector, any designated official will be in charge to decide which property is government, and therefore it should be litigated. The tribunal also initially proposed to be a two-member tribunal, will have now 3 members, and you can appeal against the decision of the tribunal also. So Rijiju has tried to set the record straight by saying that this is not an anti-Muslim bill. This is meant to help poor Muslims, the women and children, but the government's clarification is not cutting much ice with the opposition. Gaurav Gogoi is currently rebutting, and his speech is very political, saying why is it that the government is suddenly caring about Muslims when they were not even allowed to offer Eid namaz on roads where masjids were overflowing.
Arunima, thank you so much for the latest update coming in here. But on that note, we're absolutely out of time on this edition of Business Lunch and CNBC-TV18 Nifty almost near the day's highest point. But don't go anywhere. Up next, you have Midcap Radar to take you through all the market action.
With the baton of power set to shift, Bharat's youth will drive the next wave of change. The biggest leaders and policymakers, global trendsetters, business icons, and entrepreneurs will come together to inspire the next generation of change makers. Don't miss your chance to witness it all live. Rising Bharat Summit 2025.